Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at Lingua by Thomas Tomkis. It was printed in 1607 and so was produced sometime before that, sometime between 1602 and 1607. So it's on the very dying days of Elizabeth, the early years of James, and we are going to be looking at this text from Trinity College, Cambridge. It's a long play. We're squeezing it into 3 sessions. It's on the very upper limit of how much text we'll do in 3 sessions, and we're going to see how it all flows and how it all goes. You'll start getting an idea what's going on with Lingua as we go. Reading a Lingua themselves is...
Steve Longstaffe, based in the northwest of England.
Reading the Prologue, Gustus and Communis Sensus.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Reading Auditus and Memory. Being attacked by a large cat is...
I'm Aliki, Chapple, and this is Calcifer.
Beyond welcomes careful cats. Reading Mendacio is...
Hi, I'm Lynn Freitas, and I'm in the northwestern United States, where it's not even light out yet.
Reading Olfactus and Heuresis is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I think some of these are made up. I'm not sure.
Reading Tactus and Apetitus is...
Briony, Sparrow in Lincolnshire. I'm pretty sure they're all made up, Eric.
Yeah, I don't think any similarity between persons living or dead is entirely coincidental. And reading Visus and Phantastes is...
Alan, based in Suffolk.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions and generally keeping everything moving forward. And forward momentum is needed because there's a lot of text to get through. I suspect this is another one of those plays where the primary question to be asked is, what do we cut? Which is fine. Okay, the scene is microcosmos in a grove. The time from morning till night. And a prologue starts the action.
Unused describes no lover's passion, no wretched father, no unthrifty son, no craving, subtle whore, or shameless bawd, nor stubborn clown, or daring parasite, no lying servant, or bold sycophant. We are not wanton nor satirical. These have their time and places fit, but we, sad hours and serious studies to reprieve, have taught severe philosophy to smile. The senses rash contentions recompose and give displeased ambitious tongue her due. Here's all. Judicious friends, accept what is not ill. Who are not such, let them do what they will.
We'll very briefly pause on this prologue. It's setting its stall. They are not wanton or satirical. There's no wantonness or satire going on here. There's all sorts of promises of what you will get and what you won't get. Lynn.
Yeah, it's just remember Alice in Wonderland? What's the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations in it? And it's like, we don't have raunchiness, we don't have satire. I'm leaving.
To be fair, I don't think necessarily wanton in this case necessarily means excessive wantonness. It might be wanton in the amount of stuff we're going to throw on. You know, we're not going to be profligate, perhaps, in that sense of the meaning. But I agree on that sense. But yes, taught severe philosophy to smile. I don't know how that works. I am curious. Any additional brief thoughts before we dive into Act 1? Okay, a nondescript but interesting prologue. Act 1, Scene 1. Lingua apparelled in a crimson satin gown, a dressing of white roses, a little skein tied in a purple scarf, a pair of white buskins drawn with white ribbon, silk garters, gloves, etc. You're really dolled up, Stephen. I'm impressed.
I'm so going to do it, Brian.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Auditus in a garland of bays intermingled with red and white roses upon a false hair, a cloth of silver mantle upon a pair of satin bases, wrought sleeves, buskins, gloves, etc. Enter Lingua and Auditus thus attired.
Nay, good Auditus, do but hear me speak.
Lingua, Thou strikes too much upon one string. Thy tedious plain song grates my tender ears.
It is plain, indeed, for truth no descant needs. Una's her name, she cannot be divided.
Oh, but the ground itself is naught, from whence thou canst not relish out a good division. Therefore, at length, surcease. Prove not stark mad, hopeless to prosecute a hapless suit. For though, perchance, thy first strains pleasing are, I dare engage, mine ear the close will jar.
If then your confidence esteem my cause to be so frivolous and weakly wrought, why do you daily subtle plots devise to stop me from the ears of common sense? Whom since our great Queen Psyche hath ordained for his sound wisdom our vice-governor, to him and to his two so wise assistants, nimble Phantastes and firm memory, myself and cause I humbly do commit. Let them but hear and judge. I wish no more.
Should they but know thy rash presumption, they would correct it in the sharpest sort. Good Jove! What sense hast thou to be a sense? Since from the first foundation of the world we never were accounted more than 5, yet you, forsooth, an idle, prating dame, would fain increase the number, and upstart to our high seats, decking your babbling self with usurped titles of our dignity.
Idle prating dame. No, fond Auditus. Records affirm my title full as good as his amongst the 5 is counted best.
Lingua, confess the truth, thou art wont to lie.
I say so too, therefore I do not lie. Now, spite of you all, I speak the truth. You 5 among us subjects tyrannize, making the sacred name of common sense a cloak to cover your enormities. He bears the rule, he's judge, but judges still as he's informed by your false evidence, so that a plaintiff cannot have access but through your gates. He hears, but what? Naught else but what by crafty ears to him conveys. All he sees is by proud Visus showed him. What he touches is by Tactus' hand, and smells, I know, but through Olfactus knows. Gustus begins to him whate'er he tastes. By these quaint tricks free passage hath been barred, that I could never well equally be heard, but, well, 'tis well.
Lingua, thy feeble sex hath hitherto withheld my ready hands that longed to pluck that nimble instrument.
Horrible ingratitude! That thou of all the rest should threaten me, who by my means conceives as many tongues as Neptune closeth lands betwixt his arms. The ancient Hebrew, clad with mysteries, the learned Greek, rich in fit epithets, blessed in the lovely marriage of pure words, the Chaldean wise, the Arabian physical, the Roman eloquent and Tuscan grave, the braving Spanish and the smooth-tongued French, these precious jewels that adorn thine ears, all from my mouth's rich cabinet are stolen. How oft hast thou been chained unto my tongue, hanged at my lips, and ravished with my words, so that a speech fair feathered could not fly, but thy ears pitfall caught it instantly. But now, oh heavens!
Oh heavens! Thou wrong'st me much. Thou wrong'st me much, thus falsely to upbraid me. Had I not granted thee the use of hearing, that sharp-edged tongue whetted against her master, those puffing lungs, those teeth, those drowsy lips, that scalding throat, those nostrils full of ire, thy palate, proper instrument of speech, like to the winged chanters of the wood, uttering naught else but idle sifflements, tunes without sense, words inarticulate, had ne'er been able to have abused me thus. Words are thy children, but of my begetting.
Perfidious liar, how can I endure thee? Calls my unspotted chastity in question? Oh, could I use the breath mine anger spent, I'd make thee know.
Heavens, look upon my distress, defend me from this railing viperess, for if I stay, her words' sharp vinegar will fret me through. Lingua, I must be gone. I hear one call me more than earnestly.
Exit Auditus.
May the loud cannoning of thunderbolts, squeaking of wolves, and howling of tortured ghosts pursue thee still, and fill thy amazed ears with cold astonishment and hurried fears. Oh, how these senses muffle common sense, and more with pleasing objects strive to dull his judgment and pervert his will to their behests. Were he not so wrapped in the dusky clouds of their dark policies, would never suffer right to suffer wrong. Fie, Lingua, wilt thou now degenerate? Art not a woman? Dost not love revenge, delightful speeches, sweet persuasions? I have this long time used to get my right. My right, that is, to make the senses six, and have both name and power with the rest. Oft have I seasoned savoury periods with sugared words to delude Gustus' taste. Oft embellished my entreaty phrase with smelling flowers of verdant rhetoric, limning and flashing it with various dyes to draw proud Visus to me by the eyes. Oft perfumed my petitry style with civet speech, entrapped Olfactus nose, and clad myself in silken eloquence to allure the nicer touch of Tactus' hand. All's become lost labour. My cause is still procrastinated. Therefore now, hence, ye base offspring of a broken mind, supple entreaties and smooth flatteries, go kiss the lovesick lips of puling gulls that still their brain to quench their love's disdain. Go gild the tongues of bawds and parasites. I'm not within my thoughts. Yet thou, deceit, break up the pleasure of my brimful breast, enrich my mind with subtle policies. Well then, I'll go. Whither? Okay, what know I? And do, faith I will. The devil knows what. What if I set them all at variance and so obtain to speak? Must be so. Must be so. But how? There lies the point. How? Thus. This device will never prove. Augment it so 'twill be too soon descried, or so, it is too dangerous. Pish, none of these. What, if I take this course? Wow, there it goes. Good. Most excellent. He that will catch eels must disturb the flood. The chickens hatch deface, but they are proud, and soon will take a cause of discord.
As we go into Act 1, Scene 2, Lingua remains on stage. Mendacio, attired in a taffeta suit of light colour, changeable, like an ordinary page. Enter Mendacio to Lingua.
I see the heavens nurse my newborn device, but lo, my page Mendacio comes already to file and burnish that I hammered out. Never in better time, Mendacio. What hast thou done?
Done, yes, long ago.
It's possible thou shouldst dispatch so soon.
Madame, I had no sooner told Tactus and Gustus would fain speak with him, but I spied Visus, Gustus, and the rest, and served them all with sauce of several lies. Now the last sense I spake with was Olfactus, who, having smelt the meaning of my message, straight blew his nose and quickly puffed me hither. But in the whirlwind of his furious blast, had not by chance a cobweb held me fast, Mendacio had been with you long ere this.
Witness this lie. Mendacio's with me now. Sarah, out of jesting, will they come?
Yes, I'd like your ladyship presently. Here may you have me pressed to flatter them.
I'll flatter no such proud companions who do no good. Therefore, I am determined to leave such baseness.
Then shall I turn and bid them stay at home?
Or their coming hither to this grove shall be a means to further my device. Therefore, I pray thee, Mendacio, go presently. Run, you vile ape!
Whither?
To so stand?
Till I know what to do.
Precious! 'Tis true. So mightst thou finally overrun thine errand. Haste to my chest.
Aye.
There thou shalt find a gorgeous robe and golden coronet. Convey them hither nimbly, let none see them.
Madam, I fly.
Exit Mendacio.
But hear you, Sarah, lock up your fellow servant, Veritas.
I warrant you, you need not fear so long as I am with you.
He goes out and comes back in presently.
What color is the robe?
There is but one.
Mendacio
key,
going turns in haste.
Oh, the key, madam, the key.
But you know how forgetful is sudden speak. Take it, run!
I'll be here instantly.
Exit Mendacio, remain Lingua. But we will pause there for a little bit, just to take in some of the sights. So there's, I think we're getting the general schema of the thing, aren't we? The various senses of the human body are all sort of gathering here, and we're getting a sort of interesting setup and some interesting ideas. I'm quite interested in Lingua's complaint about the senses being gatekeepers. About you control what common sense finds out about the world, and I'm sort of that's interesting. That's an interesting idea. I'm interested in that. It does have a sort of baked in bit of misogyny here, which is that Lingua, basically the tongue, the speech is talks a lot and is predominantly labelled as female in this context, and is implied as directly a criticism there. I think the edges on that could be shaved off. There's enough character work going on here that and considering most of this has just been plot and world building, it hasn't been dull. It has to say that this person can write, even if what they're writing is expansive. Lynn.
Yeah, just to sort of add to what you said about the implied misogyny of Lingua talks a lot. Lingua's also deceitful and talks a lot. So yeah, the fact that she's coded female is perhaps a little problematic. Unrelated to that, something sort of quirky I noticed about this is, we have this allegory where the five senses plus language are anthropomorphized. So, we're not in a real world, but this last little exchange between Mendacio and Lingua is so it's sort of naturalistic. Okay, I'm going. Oh wait, what color was it? There's only one in there. Okay, great. I'm leaving. Oh wait, the key. Okay, here's the key. That's just like so how ordinary people interact. Which is it's a little weird in this allegorical setting. So I kind of don't know yet how I would envision this played stylistically.
It does seem to be very busy, doesn't it? Those popping in and out, and I think that there's going to be more of that kind of relationship between Lingua and Mendacio there. I suspect that's fruits of more to come. Aliki.
I don't know if it's because I read a lot of fantasy and comic books, so I'm quite used to personified aspects of life having characters that aren't quite. Anyway, but what I liked about it is that it's not a lie. A boring writer would have given us a Mendacio who was always lying. This is a different joke, and I like it for that.
Okay, let's gather on. The scene hasn't ended. We just have to pause because this is one of those things where the scenes are basically primary major exits and entrances. So Mendacio's just popped off. Act 1, Scene 3, Lingua Sola.
While in this crown and gorgeous ornament were the great prize for which 5 orators with the sharp weapons of their tongues contended, but all their speeches were so equal wrought and alike gracious, that if his were witty, his was as wise. The third's fair eloquence did parallel the fourth's firm gravity. The last's good gesture kept the balance even with all the rest, so that the sharpest eye and most judicious censor could not judge to whom the hanging victory should fall. Therefore, with one consent, they all agreed to offer up both crown and robe to me, as the chief patroness of their profession, which heretofore I holily have kept, like to a miser's gold, to look on only. Now I'll put them to a better use, and venture both in hope to...
And Lingua remains on as Act 1, Scene 4, enter Mendacio.
Have I not lied me, madam? Look you here. What shall be done with these temptations?
I say a golden ball bred enmity betwixt 3 goddesses, so shall this crown be author of debate betwixt 5 senses.
Well, where shall it be laid?
There, 'tis well said. So...
A crown's a pleasing bait to look upon. The craftiest fox will hardly escape this trap.
Come, let us away. Leave it to the chance.
Nay, rather let me stand close hereabouts and see the event.
Do so, and if they doubt how it came there, feign them some pretty fable, how that some god...
Tut, tut, tut. Let me alone. I that have feigned so many 100 gods can easily forge some fable for the turn. Whilst, madam, away, you fright the fowl. Tactus comes hard by. Look you.
Is he for certain?
Yes, 'tis he.
'Tis he indeed.
Exit Lingua. Mendacio remains on for Act 1, Scene 5. Tactus, in a dark-coloured satin mantle over a pair of silk bases, a garland of bays mixed with white and red roses upon a black grogram, falchion wrought sleeves, buskins, etc. Enter Tactus to Mendacio.
Now, chaste Diana, grant my nets to hold.
The blushing childhood of the cheerful morn is almost grown a youth, and overclimbs yonder gilt eastern hills, about which time Gustus most earnestly importuned me to meet him hereabouts. What cause I know not.
You shall do shortly to your cost, I hope.
Sure by the sun it should be 9 o'clock.
What, a stargazer? Will you ne'er look down?
Clear is the sun, and blue the firmament. Methinks the heavens do smile.
Tactus sneezeth.
At thy mishap, to look so high and stumble in a trap.
Tactus stumbleth at the robes and crown.
High thoughts have slippery feet. I had well nigh fallen.
Well, doth he fall that riseth with a fall?
What's this?
Oh, are you taken? 'Tis vain to strive.
How now?
You'll be so entangled straight
A crown?
that it will be hard
And a robe?
to loose yourself.
A crown and a robe?
It had been fitter for you to have found a fool's coat and bauble, huh?
Jupiter, how came this here?
Oh, sir, Jupiter is making thunder. He hears you not. Here's one knows better.
'Tis wondrous rich, ha! But sure it is not so, ho! Did I not sleep and dream of this good luck, ha! No, I'm awake and feel it now. Whose should it be?
He takes it up.
Set up a sea quiz for it.
Mercury, all's mine own. Here's none to cry half's mine.
When I am gone.
Exit Mendacio, leaving Tactus solus for Act 1, Scene 6.
Tactus, thy sneezing somewhat did portend. Was ever a man so fortunate as I to break his shins at such a stumbling block? Roses and bays, pack hence. This crown and robe my brows and body circles and invests. How gallantly it fits me! Sure the slave measured my head that wrought this coronet. They lie that say complexions cannot change. My blood's ennobled, and I am transformed. Unto the sacred temper of a king, methinks I hear my noble parasites styling me Caesar or great Alexander, licking my feet and wondering where I got this precious ointment, how my pace is mended, how princely do I speak, how sharp I threaten. Peasants, I'll curb your headstrong impudence, and make you tremble when the lion roars, ye earth-bred worms. Oh, for a looking-glass! Poets will write whole volumes of this discourse. Where's my attendance? Come hither, sirrah, quickly, or by the wings of Hermes.
And Act 1, Scene 7, Olfactus, in a garland of bays, intermingled with white and red roses upon a false hair, his sleeves wrought with flowers under a damask mantle over a pair of silk bases, a pair of buskins drawn with ribbon, a flower in his hand. Enter Olfactus to Tactus.
Ay me, Olfactus comes. I called too soon. He'll have half part, I fear. What shall I do? Where shall I run? How shall I shift him off?
Tactus wraps up the robe and crown and sits upon them.
This is the time, and this the place appointed where Visus promised to confer with me. I think he's there. No, just Tactus, sure. How now? What makes you sit so nicely?
'Tis past imagination, 'tis so indeed.
How fast his hands are fixed, and how melancholy he looks. Tactus!
For this is true, man's life is wondrous brittle.
He's mad, I think he talks so idly. So ho, Tactus!
And many have been metamorphosed to stranger matters and more uncouth forms.
I must go nearer him, he doth not hear.
And yet methinks I speak as I was wont, and...
Tactus!
Olfactus, as thou lovest me, come not near me.
Why, art thou hatching eggs? Art thou feared to break them?
Touch me not, lest thou chance to break my life.
What's this under thee?
If thou meddle with me, I am utterly undone.
Why, man, what ails thee?
Let me alone, I'll tell thee. Lately I come from Phantastes' house.
So I believe, for thou art very, very foolish.
No sooner had I parted out of doors, but I held up my hands before my face to shield mine eyes from the light's piercing beams, when I protest I saw the sun as clear through these my palms as through a perspective. No marvel, for when I beheld my fingers, I saw my fingers were transformed to glass. Opening my breast was like a window, through which I plainly did perceive my heart, in whose two concaves I discerned my thoughts confusedly lodged in great multitudes.
Why, this is excellent. Momus himself can find no fault with thee. Thou should make passing live anatomy, and decide the question much disputed betwixt the Galenists and Aristotle.
But when I had arrived and set me down, viewing myself, me, was changed, as thou now seest, to a perfect urinal.
A perfect urinal? Oh, monstrous! Art not mad to think so?
I do not think so, but I say I am so. Therefore, Olfactus, come not near, I advise you.
See the strange working of dull melancholy, whose drossy thoughts, drying the feeble brain, corrupts the sense, deludes the intellect, and in the soul's fair table falsely graves whole squadrons of fantastical chimeras and 1,000 vain imaginations, making some think their heads as big as horses, some that are dead, some that are turned to wolves. Now it makes him think himself all glass. Tactus, dissuade thyself, thou dost but think so.
Olfactus, if thou lovest me, get thee gone. I am an urinal, I dare not stir for fear of cracking in the bottom.
Wilt thou sit thus all day?
Unless thou help me.
Bedlam must help thee. What wouldst thou have me do?
Go to the city, make a case for me, stuff it with wool, then come again and fetch me.
Laughed out of taste and countenance.
I care not, so it must be, or I cannot stir.
I had best leave troubling him. He's obstinate. Urinal, I leave you. But above all things, take heed Jupiter sees you not, for if he do, he'll ne'er make water in a sieve again. Thou'lt serve his turn so fit to carry his water unto Asclepius. Farewell, Urinal, farewell.
Exit Olfactus.
Speak not so loud. The sound's enough to crack me. What, is he gone? I am an urinal. I protest I might have had my face washed finely if he had meant to abuse me. I, an urinal? Go to, urinal. You have scaped a fair scouring. Well, I'll away and get me to mine own house. There I'll lock up myself fast, playing the chemic, augmenting this one crown of troops to troops of angels, with which gold-winged messengers I mean to work great wonders, as to build and purchase. Fare daintily, tie up men's tongues and loose them, command their lives, their goods, their liberties, and captive all the world with chains of gold. Hey, hey, Terry Lincoln Tinkham.
He offers to go out, but comes in suddenly amazed.
Oh, Hercules! Fortune, the queen, delights to play with me, stopping my passage with the sight of Visus. But as he makes hither, I'll make hence. There's more ways to the wood than one. What, more devils to affright me? Oh, diabolo! Gustus comes here to vex me, so that I, poor wretch, am like a shuttlecock betwixt two battledores. If I run there, Visus beats me to Scylla. If here, then Gustus blows me to Charybdis. Neptune hath sworn my hope shall suffer shipwreck. What shall I say? Mine urinal's too thin to bide the fury of such storms as these.
And Tactus remains before we go on to the next bit. But I think we should pause there because we've got quite a lot to unpack. I mean, it's a nice game that is set up by Lingua. I'm just going to leave this lovely crown and things, and they're not going to be able to help themselves. And indeed, this is so. And yeah, we've got all this interesting stuff. I'm not sure about Tactus sneezing. It's like looks up at the sky and he has one of those sort of reactions where the sun makes you sneeze. I was wondering about whether I'm missing the point on that. There's some really lovely moments when he becomes over the top with power. The moment he's put this crown on, just go, I am now got, and that's absolutely wonderful stuff. The way he's sort of pretending to think as he's sat on this thing, and then of course the precise meaning in this context of urinal is a slight shift, I think, in terms of precisely what we're thinking here. But yeah, he's thinking here in terms of he's turned to glass. There's all sorts of really weird choices that Tactus has decided to dig himself a hole here. I'm really fascinated. Aliki.
There's something really clownish about these senses, and I'm enjoying that a great deal. The other thing I wanted to say is that I'm a big fan of the costume description detail, and it might be a great deal of fun for a contemporary designer to try and work out equivalents. It might not be, but I'm a big fan of that detail. We get set detail a lot, but costume detail rarely to such extent.
Yes, and they are really, really detailed. I mean, there's an awful lot of red and white roses going on here. I mean, there's a lot of the details. They're wearing quite similar clothing a lot of the time, but with specific differences here and there. Yeah, this is very silly. I think let's not be too afraid of that. This is a very silly thing. It's reminding me in energy of elements of Res Publica, going back, 50, 60 years or whatever. This is very much feeding off that sort of allegorical tradition with vices who are wandering around doing silly things and being stupid. And, this is doing something similar. Though, the level of vicery here is quite low level. It feels the stakes. I'm just going to leave a valuable object and watch everybody else fight over it. It's so pointless. I just find this whole setup. Why is anyone doing anything? Lynn, then Eric.
Yeah, like I said in the chat, Mendacio's the character whose name means lying, but boy, yeah, he's got nothing on Tactus. Like, makes up this complete whopper about I am deluded that I don't do. Okay, it's such a crazy story.
I'm turning to glass. Ah! Eric.
I was going to say this. There's a modern, well, not modern, contemporary of our time, sort of anime called Cells at Work, and basically it's something like this, except different cell types are personalized, and turned anthropomorphized. I mean, and
You've
obviously
got like nerve cells
starts,
and muscle cells and
yeah, it starts with like red blood cells, white blood cells, and it teaches you about how everything works in the body. And that's what this reminded me of, except this isn't funnier for something that went, we are not wanton nor satirical at the beginning. Also, it reminded me a bit of Peter Pan, that element of like the lost boys who just have no, that there are no women in the story, except, well, obviously, except Lingua in this case, supposedly. And sort of just the whole concept of pretending to be someone else, sort of dressing up as adults or dressing up as something else,
Briony.
Yeah, I'm just really, really enjoying the silliness. It's absolutely on my level, and I think having had a little break, I couldn't have asked for a better character to read on my first session back, so thank you.
Well, there is more, and let's find out more. So as Tactus remains on stage for Act 1, Scene 8, Visus in a garland of bays mixed with white and red roses, a light-coloured taffeta mantle striped with silver and fringed upon green silk bases, buskins, etc. Gustus in the same fashion, differing only in colour. Tactus in a corner of the stage. Enter Visus, or Visus, Gustus to Tactus.
Gustus, good day.
I cannot have a bad meeting so fair an omen as yourself.
Shall I? Wilt prove? Well, 'tis best to venture.
Tactus puts on the robes.
Saw you not, Tactus? I should speak with him.
Perchance so. A sudden lie hath best luck.
That face is his, or else mine eyes deceived. Why, how now, Tactus? What, so gorgeous?
Oh, where didst thou get these fair habiliments?
Stand back, I charge you, as you love your lives. By Styx, the first that toucheth me shall die.
Now I can discern no weapons. Will he kill us?
Kill you, not I, but come not near me, you had best.
Why, art thou mad?
Friends, as you love your lives, venture not once to come within my reach.
Why dost threaten so?
I do not threaten, but in pure love advise you for the best. Dare not to touch me, but hence fly apace, add wings unto your feet, and save your lives.
Why, what's the matter, Tactus? Prithee, tell me.
If you will needs jeopard your lives so long as hear the ground of my amazedness, then for your better safety stand aside.
How full of ceremonies? Sure he'll conjure for such like robes magicians used to wear.
I'll see the end, though he should unlock hell, set the infernal hags at liberty.
How rash is man on hidden harms to rush? It was my chance, oh, chance most miserable, to walk that way to Cremina Leeds.
You mean Cremona, a little town hard by?
I say Cremina, called Vacua, a town which doth and always hath belonged chiefly to scholars. From Cremina walls saw a man come stealing craftily, apparelled in this vesture which I wear. But seeing me, eftsoons, he took his heels and threw his garment from him all in haste, which I, perceiving to be richly wrought, took it me up. But good. Now get you gone, warned by my harms, and scape my misery.
I know no danger. Leave these circumstances.
No sooner had I put it on my back, but suddenly mine eyes began to dim, my joints wax sore, and all my body burned with most intestine torture, and at length it was too evident I had caught the plague.
Plague! Plague, Augustus, let's be gone! I doubt 'tis true. Now I remember me. Cremina Vacua never wants the plague.
Tactus, I'll put myself in jeopardy to pleasure thee.
No, gentle Gustus, your absence is the only thing I wish, lest I infect you with my company.
Oh well.
Exit Gustus.
I willingly would stay to do thee good.
1,000 thanks, but since I needs must die, let it suffice. Death only murders me. Oh, 'twould augment the dolour of my death to know myself the most unhappy bow through which pale death should aim his shafts at you.
Tactus, farewell, yet die with this good hope. Thy corpse shall be interred as it ought.
Exit Visus.
Go, make my tomb, provide my funerals. Excellent asses, thus to be deluded. Bewail his death and cruel destinies, that lives and laughs your fooleries to scorn. But where's my crown? Ah, here, I well deserve thus to be crowned for 2 great victories. Ah, Visus, take care my corpse be well interred. Go make my tomb and write upon the stone. Here lies the sense that living gulled them all with a false plague and feigned urinal.
Tactus remains on stage. Act 1, Scene 9. Enter Auditus to Tactus.
Lost my script. Need a second to find my place again.
Act 1, Scene 9.
Tactus! Tactus!
Oh no, sorry, I've just lost mine.
O Jupiter, 'tis Auditus.
Got it, sorry. Oh, Jupiter, 'tis Auditus, all's marred. I doubt the sly knave hears so far, but yet I'll grope him. How now, ears? What make you here? Ha!
Nay, what make you here, I pray? What are you talking even now of an ass and a crown and a urinal and a plague?
A plague on you! What, I?
Oh, what, you?
Oh, I had well nigh forgot. Nothing, but I say
What?
that if a man, do you mark, sir, being sick of the plague, do you see, sir, had this cold troubles me, it makes me cough sometimes extremely, had a French crown, sir, you understand me, lying by him, and, come hither, and would not bestow 2pence, do you hear, to buy an urinal, do you mark me, to carry his water to the physician,
What of all this?
I say such a one was a very ass. This was all. I used to speak to myself when I am alone, but, Auditus, when shall we hear a new set of singing books, or the viols, or the concert of instruments?
This was not all, for I heard mention of a tomb and an epitaph.
True, I had made myself merry with this epitaph. Upon such a fool's tomb thus, plague brought this man, I have forgotten. Oh, thus plague brought this man, so, unto his burial, because, because he would not buy an urinal. Come, Auditus, shall we hear thee play the lyre way, or the lute way, shall we, or the cornet, or any music? I am greatly revived when I hear.
Tactus, this will not serve. I heard all. You have not found a crown? You? No, you have not?
And they remain on stage. Act 1, Scene 10. Enter Visus, Gustus, Mendacio, 2, Tactus, and Auditus.
Peace, faith, peace. Come hither, hark thee, good Auditus now.
I cannot hold, I must needs tell.
Oh, do not. Come hither, will you be a fool?
Had he not wings upon his feet and shoulders?
Yes, and a fine wand in his hand, curiously wrapped with a pair of snakes.
Will half content you, pish, 'twill ne'er be known.
My life, 'twas Mercury.
I do not know his name, but this I'm sure he had a hat with wings upon it.
Doubtless 'twas he. But say, my boy, what did he?
First I beheld him hovering in the air, and then down stooping with 100 gyres, his feet he fixed on Mount Cephalon, from whence he flew and lighted on that plain, and with disdainful steps soon glided thither. Whither arrived, he suddenly unfolds a gorgeous robe and glittering ornament, and lays them all upon that hillock. This done, he wafts his wand, took wings again, and in a moment vanished out of sight. With that mine eyes gan stare, and heart grew cold, and all my quivering joints with sweat bedewed. My heels, methought, had wings as well as his, and so away I ran. But by the way, I met a man, as I thought, coming thither. Greg, you're muted.
What marks had he?
He had a great what? This is he. This is he.
What, Tactus?
This was the plague vexed him so. Tactus, your grave gapes for you. Are you ready?
Since you must needs die, do as others do. Leave all your goods behind you. Bequeath the crown and robe to your executors.
No such matter. I, like the Egyptian kings, for the more state will be buried in them.
Come, deliver!
And Visus snatcheth the crown and sees letters engraven in it.
What? Will you take my purse from me?
No, but a crown, that's just more than your own. Huh, what's this? 'Tis a very small hand. What inscription is this? He of the 5 that proves himself the best shall have his temples with his coronet blessed. This crown is mine, and mine this garment is, for I have always been accounted best.
Next after me, high as yourself at any time. Besides, I found it first, therefore 'tis mine.
Neither of yours, but mine as most.
And mine, the most of any of you all.
Give it me or else.
I'll make you late repent it.
Oh, presumptuous as you are.
Spite of your teeth.
Never till now. It works apace. Visus, I know 'tis yours, and yet methinks, Auditus, you should have some challenge to it. But that your title, Tactus, is so good, Gustus, I would swear the coronet were yours. What, will you all go brawl about a trifle? View but the pleasant coast of microcosm. 'Tis not great pity to be rent with wars. Is it not a shame to stain with brinish tears the smiling cheeks of ever cheerful peace? Is it not far better to live quietly than broil in fury of dissension? Give me the crown. You shall not disagree if I can please you. I'll play Paris's part, and most impartial, judge the controversy.
Saucebox, go meddle with your lady's fan, and prate not here.
I speak not for myself, but for my country's sole commodity.
Sirrah, be still.
Nay, an you be so hot the devil part you, I'll to Olfactus and send him amongst you. Oh, that I were electo for your snakes. How liberally I would bestow my snakes. For your
Exit
sake.
Mendacio.
Tactus, upon thine honour, I challenge thee to meet me here, strong as thou canst provide, in the afternoon.
I undertake the challenge, and here's my hand. In sign thou shalt be answered.
Tactus, I'll join with thee on this condition, that if we win, he that fought best of us shall have the crown, the other wear the robe.
Give me your hand. I like the motion.
Auditus, shall we make our forces double upon the same terms?
Very willingly.
Come, let's away. Fear not the victory. Right's more advantage than an host of soldiers.
And they exit. So, end of act. Everyone presumably has a little break. Okay, it's nice. We've got all the people. It's all come together. It's all come to a head, and they've got the inscription on the crown that says, you know, who's the best wins the crown, and it's like fight, and then they're taking sides. They're building, you know, factions. It's nicely done. It's nicely done. As a basic idea, it's running it quite well. Some of Tactus's dialogue is fascinating. All of that sort of pausing and there's an awful lot of work being done by some of these repetitions. These almost always three repetitions, but there's lots of these here and there where quite a lot of work is being done by just some sounds that's intimating just different bits of business that's going to go with it. I'll go to Stephen, then Briony.
Isn't it an attempt to script something that looks like improvisation? I was thinking of because, where he's kind of thinking on the feet. And so it's a really you don't get an awful lot of this. Actually, there is a little bit, but it's often just something like etc. This is an attempt to quite tightly script something to make it look like somebody is umming and ahhing and thinking on their feet, and I think that's a really interesting combination.
Briony.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Stephen's saying, and what Aliki said earlier. It felt very clowny as I was reading it, but also I don't think I've ever experienced it so well written. Like, normally I struggle. It's not until well after I've said something that I realise it should have been an aside and things like that. Whereas this, as I'm reading it, I kind of know, I feel safe in it. I know where it's going. I know what I'm supposed to be doing with it, which is very interesting.
And again, going back to that I'm going to keep flying back to Res Publica, and plays of its ilk, actually, of plays that are not necessarily designed for playhouses, where they're really quite complicated. A lot of these lines are bouncing off each other. They're really sharply cued. It feels like something where you actually have to really rehearse this stuff in a way that a lot of playhouse drama up until this point, much less so in the way it's actually designed and structured. It gives it a dynamism to the text that boys' company plays tend to have over some others, and you know the more professional end of, shall we say, the amateur sphere from earlier. So if that's makes any sense. Okay. Anyway, Eric.
I was going to say it reminds me a bit of like sort of, it's like being in Act 4 of a play, of a morality play, where like the vices start to fight each other. But yeah, it's the beginning of the play. So there's a part of going, okay, so we've established the situation, we've established they're going to fight each other. Then what? They can't kill each other off. I mean, in the sense that if they're all part of the body, that would be bad.
Yeah, I mean, often with vices fighting. I mean, these aren't technically vices per se, but they're absolutes. So they're almost literal humours, in that sort of medical way of thinking about humours. In the sense that, often vices will fight at the very beginning. The first thing they do is actually attack. The vice figure will pull out his dagger and go for one of the others. But this is a setup that, they have been worked to attack each other. They wouldn't attack each other normally, but they've been offered this equivalent golden ball, this crown to fight over, and very effectively set up to do it. Let's hope they can continue this slightly farcical setup, because that's the thing. Tactus is basically doing a farce job here of constantly have to make up slightly different lies each time, and then trying to make them all mesh and can't, and so you get the so and because and it's really nicely put together. Okay, let us go into Act 2, Scene 1. We assume it's some sort of a break between acts, potentially. Apetitus, a long, lean, raw-boned fellow in soldier's coat, a sword, etc. Enter Mendacio and Apetitus.
I long to see those. I'm not muted anymore, am I?
Yeah.
I long to see those Hotspur senses at it. They say they have gallant preparations, and not unlikely, for most of the soldiers are ready in arms since the last field fought against their yearly enemy Meleager and his wife Acrasia. That conquest hath so fleshed them that no peace can hold them. But had not Meleager been sick, and Acrasia drunk, the senses might have whistled for the victory.
Oh, what a stink of gunpowder is yonder.
Who's this? Oh, 'tis Apetitus, Gustus' hungry parasite.
I cannot endure the smoking guns, the thundering of drums. I'd rather hear the merry hacking of pot herbs and see the reeking of a hot capon. If they would use no other bucklers, if they would use no other bucklers in war but shields of brawn, brandish no swords but sweards of bacon, trail no spears but spare ribs of pork, and instead of arquebus pieces discharge artichoke pies, toss no pikes but boiled pickerels, then Apetitus would rouse up his crest and bear up himself with the proudest.
Here's a youth stark not at a trench, but an old dog at a trencher, a tall squire at a square table.
But now my good masters must pardon me. I am not one for their service is without service, and indeed their service is too hot for my diet. But what if I be not myself, but only this be my spirit that wanders up and down, and Apetitus be killed in the camp? The devil he is as soon. How's that possible? I know I am. I am Apetitus, and alive too, by this infallible token that I feel myself hungry.
Thou mightst have taken a better token of thyself by knowing thou art a fool.
Well then, I thought though I made my fellow soldiers admire the beauty of my back and wonder at the nimbleness of my heels, yet now will I, at safety at home, tell in what dangers they are in abroad. I'll speak nothing but guns and glaives and staves and phalanges and squadrons and barricadoes, ambuscados, palmados, blank point, demi-point, counterpoint, counterscarp, sallies and lies, salados, tarantantaras, ranta tara tara hey.
I must take the fife out of his mouth, or he'll ne'er have done.
But above all, I'll be sure on my knees to thank the great.
Mendacio blinds him.
Who am I? Who am I? Who I?
By the blood-stained falchion of Mavors, I'm on your side.
Why, who am I?
Are you a soldier?
No.
Then you are Master Helluo the Beerwad.
No, he's dead.
Or Galono the Gutty Sergeant, or Delfino the Vintner, or else I know you not, for these are all my acquaintance.
Would I were hanged if I be any of these.
What, Mendacio? By the faith of a knight thou art welcome. I must borrow thy whetstone to sharpen the edges of my martial compliments.
By the faith of a knight, what a pox, where are thy spurs?
I need no spurs. I ride like Pegasus on a winged horse, on a swift jennet, my boy, called Fear.
What shouldst thou fear in the wars? He's not a good soldier that hath not a good stomach.
Oh, but the stink of powder spoils Apetitus' stomach. And then, thou knowest, when 'tis gone, Apetitus is dead. Therefore I very manfully drew my sword, and flourished it bravely about mine ears, hissed, and finding myself hurt, most manfully ran away.
All heart, indeed, for thou ranst like a hart out of the field. It seems then the senses mean to fight it out?
Aye, and outfight themselves, I think, and all about a trifle, a paltry bauble found I know not where.
Thou art deceived. They fight for more than that, a thing called superiority, of which the crown is but an emblem.
Mendacio, hang this superiority. Crown me no crown, but Bacchus's crown of roses. Give me no sceptre, but a fat capon's leg, to show that I am the king of Hungary. Therefore, I prithee, talk no more of state matters, but in brief, tell me, my little rascal, how thou hast spent thy time this many a day.
Faith, in some credit, since thou saw'st me last.
How so? Where?
Everywhere. In the court your young gentlewomen hang at their apron strings, and that makes me them answer so readily. In the city, I am honored like a god, none so well acquainted with your tradesmen, your lawyers, all the term time, hire me of my lady. Your gallants, if they hear my name abused, they stab for my sake. Your travelers do dote upon me as he passes. Oh, they have good reason, for I have carried them to many a good meal under the countenance of my familiarity. Nay, your statements have oftentimes closely conveyed me under their tongues to make their policies more current. As for old men, they challenge my company by authority.
I am exceeding glad of your great promotion.
Now, when I am disposed, I can philosophize it in the university with the subtlest of them all.
I cannot be persuaded that thou art acquainted with scholars ever since thou wert pressed to death in a printing house.
No, why, I was the first founder of the 3 sects of philosophy, except one of the Peripatetics, who acknowledge Aristotle. I confess their great-grandfather.
Thou boy, how is this possible? Thou art but a child, and there were sects of philosophy before thou wert born.
Apetitus, thou mistakest me. I tell thee, 3,000 years ago was Mendacio born in Greece, nursed in Crete, and ever since honored everywhere. I'll be sworn I held old Homer's pen when he writ his Iliads and his Odysseys.
Thou hadst need, for I hear say he was blind.
I helped Herodotus to pen some part of his Muses. Let Pliny ink his lent Pliny ink to write his history, rounded Rabelais in the ear when he historified Pantagruel, and as for Lucian, I was his genius. Oh, those 2 books, De Vera Historia, howsoever they go under his name, I'll be sworn I writ them, every tittle.
Sure, as I am hungry, thou'dst have it for lying, but hast thou rusted this latter time for want of exercise?
Oh, nothing less. I must confess I would have jogged Stowe and Great Hollinshead on their elbows when they were about their chronicles. And as I remember, Sir John Mandeville's travels and a great part of the Decades were my doing. But for the Mirror of Knighthood, Bevis of Southampton, Palmerin of England, Amadis of Gaul, Huon of Bordeaux, Sir Guy of Warwick, Martin Marprelate, Robin Hood, Gargantua, Garelian, and 1,000 such exquisite monuments as these, no doubt, but they breathe in my breath, up and down.
Downwards, I'll swear, for there's stinking lies in them.
But what should I light a candle to the bright sunshine of my glorious renown? The whole world is full of Mendacio's fame.
And so it will be, so long as the world is full of fame.
But, Sirrah, how hast thou done this? How hast thou done this long time?
Inasmuch request as thyself, to begin with the court, as thou didst, I lie with the ladies all night, and that's the reason they call for cullies and gruelies so early before their prayers. Your gallants never sup, breakfast, or bever without me.
That's false, for I have seen them eat with a full stomach.
True, but because they know a little thing drives me from them, therefore in midst of meat they present me with some sharp sauce or a dish of delicate anchovies or a caviar to entice me back again. Nay, more, your old sires that hardly go without a prop will walk a mile or 2 every day to renew their acquaintance with me. As for the academy, it is beholding to me for adding the 8th province unto the noble heptarchy of the liberal sciences.
What's that, I prithee?
The most desired and honourable art of cookery. Now, sirrah, in the city I am... Oh, the body of a louse!
What, art a louse in the city?
Not a word more, for yonder comes Phantastes and somebody else.
What a pox can Phantastes do?
Work a miracle if he would prove wise.
'Tis he indeed, the vilest nup. Yet the fool loves me exceedingly, but I care not for his company. For if he once catch me, I shall never be rid of him.
And they exit. We're going to pause there. Okay. There's some fun stuff going on in this scene. There's quite a lot of this scene, and there's quite a lot of fun stuff. I think this is one of the where we take a Ben Jonson approach, which is we choose our favourite gags, and then we ditch the other iterations of basically the same gag, which repeated again and again. As for world building and plot, the opening of this does sort of build this idea that this little quarrel has grown into a full-scale war, and that all the servants to all the various senses are that Apetitus comes on dressed as a soldier. It builds this impression that this has got slightly out of hand during the interval, and I'm quite liking that. I don't know if the play's going to keep on with that and do more with it, but I really like that as an idea because it sort of does all sorts of interesting things with this scene, as well as just general jokes about lying and literary criticism, which was quite fun. Aliki and then Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, we've had these very lively scenes, highly suggestive of physical action, and then all of a sudden it's just these two guys talking. And while I did love some of the jokes, I agree that we should employ a sparing approach. I'm not entirely sure that, what's his name, Apetitus, is dressed as a soldier because there's a war on. I almost feel like, the old joke about an army marching on its stomach, soldiers are always hungry, might be what's at play instead.
Lynn.
I was just enjoying just some of the phrasing, which is just so lovely and clever. The way Apetitus says, "I showed them how beautiful my back was because I was running away." I don't know. Some of that was just really. I just love the way it's constructed. It broke my brain a little bit though, because here's Mendacio talking about this person and this person, like this person's work is full of me and that person's work is full of me, so at first, my first interpretive pass was like, oh, he's saying that basically all these writers are liars, but Mendacio is also a liar. So is he lying about making other people lie? Listen to me careful. No, I am lying.
If the last thing I said was a lie, but the next thing I said was a truth, it's that kind of paradox, isn't it? Yes.
I don't know if that's me overthinking it or if that's a deliberate effect.
But it's referencing all sorts of actual literary things as well. I mean, all of those literary quotations are real. All of those references, we've got certain texts that we still have. Some of them we don't, but we've got a reasonable scattering of them. So I wonder for today whether we might tweak some of those literary references to just say he's written, the more modern literary canon. In the same way as I'm very tempted to rename all of these senses with, their English counterparts rather than the names used here, just to take that edge off, because there is a slight distancing that's doing. But it's I'm not. I say apart from some cuts, I'm still finding this is holding together reasonably well. There is a plot here. Stephen, muted at present.
Just a kind of nerd point to follow that up. Martin Marprelate is a completely different kind of beast. Martin Marprelate is a pseudonym adopted for anti-clerical satire in the 1590s. There's this huge kind of war of pamphlets, and they end up on the stage as well. And it's this huge controversy, and involves sort of censorship and people being put in the slammer and stuff. Ecclesiastical government then having its true importance fully recognised, unlike these degenerate days. But all the rest of those figures are kind of heroic romance figures. So there's a kind of meta thing there. That was that long list of Guy of Warwick and Bevis of Hampton, all these figures who are sort of satirised in Night of the Burning Pestle. And then in amongst them, as a kind of heroic knight, is Martin Marprelate, who is exact opposite. He's kind of sort of samizdat pseudonym, that the government was extremely annoyed about. So I think that's a really interesting point to add in there.
Yes, the whole Martin Marprelate sort of universe is quite a slippery one to try and get proper hold of, because so we know sort of more about it than than the useful examples we have of it of its movement, which is frustrating. So it's one of these things. We haven't done much on it. We've mentioned it in passing occasionally, but it's not like it's passing through us in quite so concrete a fashion. It's frustrating. Any other thoughts before we go into the next scene, which is a separate scene? Everyone's cleared the stage for the first time since the interval, since the end of the act break. So Act 2 has 2 separate scenes, even though they are sort of linked because they exit the stage because these people are coming on. Anyway, nobody's waving. Act 2, Scene 2. Phantastes is a swart-complexioned fellow, but quick-eyed, in a white satin doublet of one fashion, green velvet hose of another, a fantastical hat with a plume of feathers of several colours, a little short taffeta cloak, a pair of buskins cut, drawn out with sundry coloured ribbons, with scarves hung about him after all fashions and of all colours, rings, jewels, a fan, and in every place other odd compliments. Everything. Enter Phantastes with everything. Heuresis, a nimble, spirited page in the newest fashion, with a garland of bays, etc. Phantastes and Heuresis.
So, boy, Heuresis, boy, how now, biting your nails?
3 things have troubled my brain this many a day, and just now, when I was laying hold on the invention of them, your sudden call made them, like Tantal's apples, fly from my fingers.
Some great matters? Question us. What were they?
The quadrature of a circle, the philosopher's stone, and the next way to the Indies.
Let us well to meditate on these 3 things at once, for they'll be found out altogether. Ad graces calendas, but let them pass, and carry the conceit I told you this morning to the party you wot of. In my imagination, 'tis capricious. 'Twill take, I warrant thee.
I will, sir, but what say you to the gentleman that was with you yesterday?
I think thou meanst him that made 19 sonnets on his mistress' bust point.
The same, sir. You promised to help him out with the 20th.
By Jupiter's cloven pate, 'tis true. But we witty fellows are so forgetful. But stay, Heuresis, carry him this. The Gordian knot, which Alexander Great did Willem cut with his all-conquering sword, was nothing like thy bust point, pretty Pete, nor could so fair an augury afford. Then to conclude, let him pervert Catilis zonum solvit duligatum thus, which if I chance to cut or else untie, thy little world I'll conquer present lie. 'Tis pretty. Tell him 'twas extemporal.
Well, sir, but now for Master Innamorato's love letter.
Some nettling stuff, i' faith. Let him write thus. Most heart-commanding faced gentlewoman, even as the stone in India called basiliscus, hurts all that looks on it, as at the serpent in Arabia called Auditus. Delight of the sight, so does thy celestial orb assimilating eyes, both please and in pleasing wound my love darted heart.
But what trick shall I invent for the conclusion?
Anything, love will ministering for the rest. He that hath once begun well hath half done. Let him begin again, and there's all.
Master Gullio spoke for a new fashion. What for him?
Fashion for his suit. Let him button down the sleeve with 4 elbows, and so make it the pure hieroglyphic of a fool.
Nay, let me then request one thing of you.
What's that, boy? With
Mr.
fair hand you shall have it.
Mistress Superbia, a gentlewoman of my acquaintance, wished me to devise her a new set for her ruff and an odd attire. I pray, sir, help me out with it.
Ah, boy, in my conceit, 'tis a hard matter to perform. These women have well nigh tired me with devising tires for them, and set me at a nonplus for new sets. Their heads are so light and their eyes so coy that I know not how to please them.
I pray, sir, she hath a bad face and fain would have suitors. Fantastical and odd apparel would perchance draw somebody to look on her.
If her face be naught, in my opinion, the more view it, the worse. Bid her wear the multitude of her deformities under a mask, till my leisure would serve to devise some durable and unstained blush of painting.
Very good, sir.
Away then, hie thee again. Meet me at the court within this hour at farthest.
Exit Heuresis.
Oh heavens, how have I been troubled these latter times with women, fools, babes, tailors, poets, swaggerers, gulls, ballad makers. They've almost disrobed me of all the toys and trifles I can devise. Were it not that I pity the multitude of printers, those sonnet mongers should starve for conceits for all Phantastes. But these puling lovers cannot but laugh at them and their encomiums of their mistresses. They make, forsooth, her hair of gold, her eyes of diamond, her cheeks of roses, her lips of rubies, her teeth of pearl, and her whole body of ivory. When they have thus idled her like Pygmalion, they fall down and worship her. Psyche, thou hast laid a hard task on my shoulders to invent at everyone's ask. Were it not that I refresh my dullness once a day with thy most angelical presence, 'twere impossible for me to undergo it.
Remains on stage as Act 2, Scene 3, Communis Sensus, a grave man in a black velvet cassock, like a counsellor, speaks coming out of the door.
I cannot stay. I tell you, 'tis more than time I were at court. I know my sovereign Psyche have expected me this hour.
In good time, yonder comes common sense. Imagine it should be he by his voice.
Crave my counsel? Tell me what manner of man he is. Can he entertain a man in his home? Can he hold his velvet cap in one hand and veil his bonnet with the other? Knows he how to become a scarlet gown? Have he a pair of fresh posts at his door?
He's about some hasty state matters. He talks of posts, methinks.
Can he part a couple of dogs brawling in the streets? Why then, choose him mayor. Upon my credit he'll prove a wise officer.
Save you, my lord. I've attended your leisure this hour.
Oh, fie upon it! What a toil have I had to choose them a mayor yonder. There's a fusty courier would have this man. There's a chandler wipes his nose on his sleeve and swears it shall not be so. There's a mustard maker looks as keen as vinegar will have another. Oh, this many-hooded multitude is a hard matter to please them.
Especially where the multitude is so well-headed. But I pray you, where's Master Memory? Hath he forgotten himself that he is not here?
Oh, 'tis high time he were at court. I would he were come.
And they remain on stage for the arrival in Act 2, Scene 4 of Memory, an old decrepit man in a black velvet cassock, a taffeta gown furred with white grogram, a white beard, velvet slippers, a watch, staff, etc. Anamnestes, his page, in a grave satin suit, purple buskins, a garland of bays and rosemary, a gymnal ring with one link hanging, ribbons and threads tied to some of his fingers, in his hand a pair of table books, etc. Enter these two to those two.
How soon a wise man shall have his wish.
Memory, the season of your coming is very ripe.
Had you stayed a little longer, 'twould have been stark rotten.
I am glad I saved it from the swine. It's precious. Have I forgotten something? My purse. Anamnestes. Remembrance. That wild boy is always gadding. I remember he was at my heels even now, and now the vile rascal has vanished.
Is he not here? Why, then, in my imagination, he's left behind. Hello, Anamnestes. Remembrance!
And yes, I don't think I've given anyone to read this part, so Stephen, could you fill in Anamnestes, please?
Unmuting, sorry.
He's running in haste.
Anonymous! An answer! An answer!
Sirrah, what are brawlings here?
I do but give you an answer with an answer.
You answer sweetly. I have called you 3 or 4 times, one after another.
Well, sir, I hope I've answered you 3 or 4 times, one in the neck of another. But if your good worship have lent me any more calls, tell me, I'll repay them, as I'm a gentleman.
Oh, leave your tattle. Had you come at first, I have not spent so much breath in vain.
Well, the truth is, sir, the first time you called, I heard you not. The second, I understood you not. The third, I knew not whether it was you or no. And the fourth, I could not tell where you were, and that's the reason I answered so suddenly.
Go, sirrah, run, seek everywhere. I have lost my purse somewhere.
I go, sir. Go, sirrah, seek, run. I have lost, bring. Oh, here's a dog's life with a pox. Shall I always be used like a water spaniel?
And exit.
Come, good master, register. I wonder you be so late nowadays.
My good lord, I remember that I knew your grandfather in this your place, and I remember your grandfather's great-great-father's grandfather's father's father. Yet in those days I never remember that any of them could say that register memory ever broke 1 minute of his appointment.
Why, good father, why are you so late nowadays?
'Tis thus. The most customers I remember myself to have are, as your lordship knows, scholars, and nowadays the most of them are become critics, bringing me home such paltry things to lay out for them that I can hardly find them again.
Jupiter, I thought these flies had a bit none but myself. Do critics tickle you, Faith?
Very familiarly, for they must know of me, forsooth, how every idle word is written in all the musty, moth-eaten manuscripts kept in all the old libraries in every city twixt England and Peru.
Indeed, I have noted these times to affect antiquities more than is requisite.
I remember in the age of Asarchus and Ninus, and about the wars of Thebes and the siege of Troy, there were few things committed to my charge, but those that were well worthy the preserving. But now every trifle must be wrapped up in a volume of eternity. A rich pudding wife or a cobbler cannot die, but I must immortalize his name with an epitaph. A dog cannot piss in a nobleman's shoe, but it must be sprinkled into the chronicles that I never could remember my treasure more full and never emptier of honourable and true heroical actions.
By your leave, memory, you're not alone troubled. Chronologies, many of them are so fantastic as when they bring up a captain to a combat, lifting up his revengeful arm to dispart the head of his enemy, he'll hold up his arms so long till they have bestowed 3 or 4 pages describing the gold heaps of his threatening falchion, so that in my fancy the reader may well wonder his adversary stabs him not before he strikes. Moreover, they have become the most powerful flatterers, always begging at my gates for invention.
This is a great fault in a chronologist and parasite. An absolute historian should be in fear of none, neither should he write anything more than truth for friendship, or less for hate, but keep himself equal and constant in all his discourses. But for us, we must be contented, for as our honours increase, so must the burthen of the cares of our offices urge us to wax heavy.
But not till our backs break. Slap, there never was any so haunted as I am. This day there comes a sophister to my house, knocks at my door, his errand being asked. Forsooth, his answer was to borrow a fair sweet suit of conceits out of my wardrobe, to apparel a show he had in hand. What do you think is the plot?
Nay, I know not, for I am little acquainted with such toys.
Meanwhile, he's somewhat acquainted with you. He's bold to bring your person upon the stage.
What? Me? I can't remember that I was ever brought upon the stage before.
Yes, you and myself with all my fantastical tricks and humours. But I trow I fitted him out. Fitted him with fooleries. I'll trust he never trouble me again.
Oh, times! Oh, manners! When boys dared to traduce men in authority. Was ever such an attempt heard?
I remember there was, for to say the truth, at my last being in Athens, now let me see, about 1,800 years ago, I was at a comedy of Aristophanes making. I shall never forget it. The arch-governor of Athens took me by the hand and placed me. There, I say, I saw Socrates abused most grossly, himself being then a present spectator. I remember he sat full against me. I did not so much as show the least countenance of discontent.
In those days it was lawful, but now the abuse of such liberty is insufferable.
Think what you will of it. I think 'tis done, and I think it is by acting by this time. Hark, drummings yonder. I'll lay my life they come to present the show I spake of.
It may be so. Stay, we'll see what 'tis.
And they stay. And yes, can you hear that drum in the background? It's the plot returning to the play, which has taken a bit of a break from plot. We've had a few scenes now of witty bants, and some of it is very witty, and some of it is really fun. But there's a lot of it. And I am losing the thread, which is a shame because, as I say, there is some really nice stuff going on here. I do love the complaint of the servant. You know, go, Sirrah, seek, run. I have lost. Bring. It's just boiling down the servant's life into not even to complete sentences. It's just, you know, go, find, seek, good. There's some really, really nice bits in here, but as I say, there's a lot of them. More wonderful descriptions of costumes, and all sorts of questions. I mean, Phantastes has one hell of a costume. I mean, it's like the list just says, you know, everything. Put everything on him. Just keep putting the things, because it's like that list. I was going, he won't have room to move. He'll be sort of like the Michelin Man, just in terms of being covered in so much stuff. He'll just sort of wobble on. So yeah, and then we have these slightly more stripped, graver figures in black, who are much, much more, you know, reserved. So it's really interesting, and the way that these allegorical elements are all interacting, and the way they all sort of function. It's some interesting stuff going on here. It's great characterization, but again, not enough plot for my liking. I feel like everything's sort of ground to a halt. Thoughts in the room before we read our final bit of this act. Stephen, then Aliki.
Having said that, I mean, there's sort of some of the older allegorical plays, you lose the will to live because they're just such abstract personifications. So I'm wondering if, you know, one of the things that they're trying to do with this play is to try and take a really, really kind of old form and just give a bit of it which didn't often have so much life, give it a load of life, but that has then perhaps unbalanced it in another way.
Yeah, I mean, because we were discussing in the chat, you know, precisely how to describe Phantastes and Heuresis of, you know, imagination and invention and things like that. So the elements to common sense, and again, even what common sense means in this context, is that just sort of the thinking part of the brain, or is, you know, because, you know, there's all sorts of sort of slightly fringy edges to what some of these are meaning. Aliki.
No, I was just thinking that it's a bit like, in modern terms, the difference between driving the plot forward and fan service. You've got this set of in-jokes here for the kind of people who, like me, will go, Aristophanes making fun of Socrates. Oh, he saw the clouds. I bet it was the clouds. Aren't I clever to know that?
Yes, and actually, there seems to be an awful lot. It feels like maybe there's some spoofing of real people or something in the middle of this. You know, the way memory is written feels. You know, I think we've all met someone a bit like memory of just going, yes, I knew all your, you know, Yes, I knew your father's father and their aunt's tennis partner. It's that kind of thing. Other thoughts, Lynn?
Yeah, I think Aliki's right. There's a little bit of that flattering of the audience going on earlier in the scene with Mendacio talking about all these different authors. I mean, lots of people would vaguely know about Homer, but Herodotus would be somewhat more erudite. So people feel good about being able to get the jokes.
I have to say, it worked for me. I mean, when we did get to the Aristophanes bit, I was going, "Oh yeah, no, you are, and I thought, yeah, I've been pandered to. Well done." But yeah, that's not necessarily what we're here for. That kind of elite pandering that is going on. Any other thoughts before we complete the act? No, they've heard the drum. It's the sound of the plot coming rattling back into the room. Act 2, Scene 5. Enter to those present Lingua, Mendacio, to memory, Phantastes, and Communis, Sensus.
Strain thyself in great haste.
I warrant you, madam, I doubt 'tis vain to run, but they are all passed over taking.
Is not this Lingua that is in such haste?
Yes, stand still.
I must speak with him.
With whom?
Assure yourself they are all at court ere this.
Run after them, for unless he knows it.
Lingua!
Oh, is it your lordship? I beseech you, pardon me. Haste and fear, I protest. Put out mine eyes. I looked so long for you that I knew not when I had found you.
In my conceit, that's like a man who inquired who saw his ass when he himself ridden on him.
Oh, my heart beats so fine.
I am so weary, so.
I prithee, Lingua, make an end.
Let me begin first, I beseech you, but if you need have the end first, thus 'tis. The Commonwealth of Microcosm at this instant suffers the pangs of death. Oh, it is gasping for breath. Will you have all? I mean, it is poisoned.
What apothecary durst be so bold as to make such a confection? What poisonest?
There's a golden crown.
I mistake, or else Galen in his book, De Sanitete Tuenda, commends gold as a restorative.
Lingua, express yourself.
Madam, if you want breath, let me help you out.
I prithee do.
My lord, the report is that Mercury, coming late into this country, in this very place left a coronet with this inscription, that the best of the 5 should have it, which the senses, thinking to belong unto them,
they challenge each other and are now in arms, and like your lordship.
Oh, I protest it likes not me.
What, their battles are not far hence, ready ranged.
Oh, monstrous presumption, what shall we do?
Whose memory?
I'm sorry, it's the new technology. I'm not so good with it. Sorry. My lord, in your great-grandfather's time, there was, I remember, such a breach amongst them. Therefore, my counsel is that after his example, by the strength of your authority, you convene them before you.
Oh, Lingua, go presently. Command the senses upon their allegiance to our dread sovereign Queen Psyche to dismiss their companies and personally to appear before me without any pretense of excuse.
I go, my lord.
Hear you, madam. I pray you, let your tongue's page walk with us a little, till you return again.
With all my heart.
Exit Lingua.
What youths, I protest, saw you those warlike preparations?
Lately, my lords, I sped into the army, but oh, 'tis far beyond my reach of wit or strength of utterance to describe their forces.
Go to, speak what thou canst.
Upon the right hand of a spacious hill, proud Visus marshalleth a puissant army, 3,000 eagles strong, whose valiant captain is Jove's swift thunder-bearer, that same bird. that hoist up Ganymede from the Trojan plains. The vanguard, strengthened with a wondrous flight of falcons, haggards, hobbies, terslets, lanards, and goshawks, sparhawks, and ravenous birds. The rearward, granted to Auditus' charge, is stoutly followed with an impetuous herd of stiff-necked bulls and many horn-mad stags of the best head in the forest that the forest can afford.
I promise you a fearful troop of soldiers.
Right opposite stands Tactus, strongly armed with 3,000 bristled urchins for his pikemen, 400 tortoises for elephants, besides a monstrous troop of ugly spiders within an ambushment he hath commanded of their own guts to spin a cordage fine, whereof to have framed a net, a wondrous work, that, fastened by the concave of the moon, spread down itself to the earth's circumference.
'Tis very strange. I cannot remember the like engine at any time.
Nay, more, my lord, the masks are made so strong that I myself upon them scaled the heavens and boldly walked about the middle region, where, in the province of the meteors, I saw the cloudy shops of hail and rain, garners of snow and crystals full of dew, rivers of burning arrows, dens of dragons, huge beams of flames and spears like firebrands, where I beheld hot Mars and Mercury with rackets made of spheres and balls of stars, playing tennis for a ton of nectar. And that vast gaping of the firmament under the southern pole is nothing else but a great hazard of their tennis court. The zodiac is the line, the shooting stars, which in an eye-bright evening seem to fall, are nothing but the balls they lose at bandy. Thus, having took my pleasures with those sights, by the same net I went up, I descended.
Well, Sirrah, to what purposes tends this stratagem?
None know directly, but I think it is to entrap the eagles when the battle joins.
Who takes Tactus his part?
Under the standard of thrice hardy Tactus, thrice valiant Gustus leads his warlike forces, an endless multitude of desperate apes, 500 marmosets and long-tailed monkeys, all trained to the field, and nimble gunners.
I imagine there's old moving amongst them. You think some handful of nuts would turn them all out of their soldiers' coats?
Ramparts of pastry crust and forts of pies, entrenched with dishes full of custard stuff, hath Gustus made, and planted ordnance, strange ordnance, cannons of hollow canes, whose powders rapeseed charged with turnip shot.
I remember in the country of Utopia there used no other kind of artillery.
But what's become of Olfactus?
He politically leans to neither part, but stands betwixt the camps as at receipt, having great swine his pioneers to entrench them.
In my foolish imagination, Olfactus is very like the goddess of victory. Never takes any part but the conquerors.
And in the woods be placed secretly 200 couple of hounds and hungry mastiffs, and o'er his head hover at his command a cloud of vultures, which o'erspread the light, making a night before the day be done. But to what end, not known, but feared of all.
I conjecture he intends to see them fight, and after the battle to feed his dogs, hogs, and vultures on the murdered carcasses.
My lord, I think the fury of their anger will not be obedient to the message of Lingua, for otherwise, in my conceit, I should have been here ere this. With your lordship's good liking, will attend upon you to see the field for more certainty.
It shall be so. Come, Master Register, let's walk.
And off they go. So at last we get reports of the war, and the war is being fought with many logical things. We all know about the wars fought in the past with war tortoises, terrifying beasts, and of course, entrenching yourself with swine is a very, very... Yeah, there's all sorts of really interesting things. 500 marmosets and long-tailed monkeys. I like the ordnance, cannons of hollow canes whose powders is rapeseed charged with turnip shot. I mean, this is a wonderful picture of this war, and about time too, as well. I mean, I have now basically marked in my script how this... My cut is going, is get to this bit as quickly as we can, establish the new characters, yes, play with some of the fun stuff, but let's get to this bit because this bit's interesting. I want to hear about the war. And yeah, it's a weird war. Of course, how much of this is true is always one of those interesting questions because, of course, it's being told by a liar. So it's true there's a war, but whether it's involving all these things, who knows? Who cares? Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, you get these lovely, descriptions of, troops of urchins and spiders, and then somebody says, so how's this going to work? And Mendacio just goes, I don't know.
Not my department, Gov.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's suddenly very physical again. It's like the moment Lingua comes on, it's like this, oh, quick, over here, no, over here, no, oh, yes. And it feels like it's got, rather than two people or a few people talking at each other, it feels like there's bustle again. And that's sort of what we were buying into in Act 1, whereas Act 2 felt much more static. Lynn?
Yeah, and I envision Mendacio when he does his description of the battle array and this fantastical net that he climbs to heaven, like really talking with his hands a lot. So running around the stage and sort of like paint, almost literally painting that picture. I envision that as a very physical routine.
Yeah, I like the idea of maybe moving the other actors around on the stage to actually set up the battle lines and building that picture really nicely. And yeah, it's painting with words, but that creates the impression of what happens stage-wise, and that I really like. I mean, and again, if you want to go for it, you could have shadow puppetry and things here to show the silliness of what he's stating, and you could really go for that if you wish to go for it. Stephen, then Eric.
I wonder if also that this would mesh really nicely with the kind of more over the top costumes. I mean, they're all pretty over the top, aren't they? But some of them are described as absolutely fantastical. And finally, we're getting this sort of fantastical dialogue, which is fitting the actual kind of craziness of the people's appearance. A bit like that Peter Greenaway film of The Tempest, where everyone's wearing these extremely strange, over elaborate cozies, and the language kind of matches that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking for a modern production, we don't have to literally follow what they're saying, but we can take the sort of hint of what they're going, because there's a lot of fun to be had with saying, you are the personification of sight. How many eyes can you put on a costume? What can you do with ears and noses? How big is the nose on Olfactus? How big are the ears on? You could have a lot of fun with masks or half masks and shapes. And you can make this very, very silly, and because I think it is quite silly. I think I'm getting that. I'm just a soupçon of silly here, just a wee gambit. There's still a lot of text. I think we need to seriously look at how to bring this down. But I think the core of it so far, I'm buying into this allegory. I like the idea that the senses are at war. I'm finding this interesting, and it does seem that this is quite an expansive war. That the impression you got of the servant Apetitus in the beginning of the act, wandering on dressed like a soldier, just like I don't want to be involved in the front line. I don't want to get involved in that. I just want to eat food because I'm hungry all the time because I'm appetite. And that sort of sets up as a nice introductory note to this close of the act. And if we can just sort of narrow down all the stuff in between to the good bits and then get on with it. But then part of me quite likes some of these two-handers just separate things that could be done and lifted and just done as little interesting exercises. I think there is something that can be done with them almost in isolation to the rest of the play, actually. That might work. Any other thoughts on the end of Act 2, Eric?
I like to think that, because you were mentioning how it's Mendacio's part is a very physical part, but then I was thinking he could just be like laying out all the like Lego with like I don't know, or just like play pieces, like Dungeons and Dragons or something, just like sort of they moved here and they did this, and just like sort of over a chessboard, or over a sort of imaginary what do you call it, map of the universe.
I'm feeling Subutio here.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know where you get the specialist pieces from, but yeah,
or
that
like
sort of
fantasy
dungeon
football, like the how do you call it,
yeah, it's a sort of war game kind of tabletop thing. Yeah. Okay, any other thoughts before we go to final thoughts? Okay, let's go into final thoughts about the show overall. I think, yeah, I mean, obviously I've been forcing this thought on everyone. You can all disagree. But the shape of this is good. There's some really nice stuff in it. And, we've got to cut at a minimum 5,000 words. I think we found at least one of them, maybe 2,000 words that could happily be taken out of Act 2. And then just trimming other stuff and but also it moves quite fast. So I think even though it's a long play, I think if you give it welly, then actually it's not as long as the word count may suggest. So actually you may have a few extra 1,000 words in lieu. But yeah, final thoughts around the room. Briony, you had some fun bits and bobs. Any final thoughts?
I'm really enjoying it so far. And I don't ever like to speak too soon because I usually get stuff very, very wrong. But I hope it continues to be as silly as it has been.
Yes. We've still got a lot of text to get through, so there may be more longers along the way. And of course, it's always that worry. How's it going to end? I assume they're all going to be friends and agree to not be horrible to one because they're all part of the same body, but who knows? I don't know. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I must admit it's the usual question I come up with quite a lot on, particularly on the student plays. What were they smoking?
Does it still exist, and can we get some?
Yeah, quite.
That battle scene was quite trippy, actually, wasn't it?
I must admit, I was getting the impression that you actually needed olfactory effects in the auditorium. Sort of nice, sweet-smelling smoke drifting over from the bar.
I don't think it's legal for us to do that, but hey, it's a nice thought. Eric, any final thoughts?
I just want to see this on stage now, just because, like, all the colors, the sort of, the vibrancy of it. It's hard not to. I mean, obviously, we've had you said we want to cut this a bit or a lot, but yeah, it looks like too much fun. Sort of, I keep imagining like Mendacio, like when referring to Lingua in that first scene, sort of, oh yes, I'll go now, sort of creeping off and then coming back, and then but what about the key and Madam and that kind of thing? I don't know. It's just yeah, I want more.
Yeah, you just said something that chimed to me, which is the danger with a text like this is that we're enjoying it a lot. We've got to make sure an audience enjoys it. And there is a danger with something like this, which is a bit self-indulgent, that you could really go over the top and really go into a thing like this and actually produce something utterly tedious for the viewer. But, we're sitting here enjoying it and we're having fun, but it actually needs to be something for the audience as well. There's a risk of that. I don't think it's a big risk, but I think, we have to be we maybe have to cut some bits we really like because of the length. To make it really sing. Sometimes you have to kill your children to make them fly.
Babies.
Don't think that's quite right. Anyway, Alan, I'll go back to you.
Yeah, just a very quick thought that I think it was written for a very specific type of audience, because I think all of that stuff in Mendacio, where we had basically the bookseller's advert, that probably was pretty well the curriculum of what was being studied by many of the potential audience.
Curriculum or bobbing about, yeah. I mean, it does feel like a reading list, doesn't it? But I think you're absolutely right. And so, yeah, considering what the audience for this is, as well as what we're doing with it, is not important. Don't forget the audience. Don't forget them. They are important. Greg, any final thoughts? Do you have any common sense answers for
this
us?
one. It's but going back to what were they smoking at the time, I'm half expecting that to turn up as a character at some point. The way this is going.
Lynn, any final thoughts?
Well, it is silly. I'm kind of enjoying that. This text has really revived the dormant costume designer in me, and I'm thinking, you kind of can't do this with T-shirts that say, hearing on it. Like, part of the fun is the over the topness of the visuals. So how do you do that if you don't have £10,000 to spend? So that's kind of what I'm turning over in my mind. How do you do this? It really has, to me, the feel of a drag show. That sort of like feathers and really heavy makeup and platform high heels, and everyone's like, basically 7 feet tall because of the shoes. And I think you need to do that and do it well and not make it look cheesy. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is how could a modestly underwritten, a modestly financed company do this and pull it off? Because I think you really have to be over the top. There is no top to be over in terms of the visuals.
Stephen, any final thoughts?
Just the kind of the overall idea of the play. I was thinking as we were doing it about these ancient plays from sort of 80 years before or whatever it is. So I'm thinking this is a kind of secular version. This is actually philosophy, isn't it? The next couple of centuries of European philosophy are all about, where do we get knowledge from? What is its relationship to the senses? Mm-hmm. And so you've got this kind of strange, common sense could be a political thing as well, couldn't it? Mm-hmm. So it could be a kind of political morality. But what I was getting, I suppose, it made me think, well, maybe some of this stuff from earlier periods that seems so didactic, we've got a much more helpful script this time in terms of imagining how you marry the didactic frame to, some really interesting kind of live theatre. And it made me think, well, maybe, we dwell too much on the sort of moral side of the moral litty play, and it's to do with the actual textual remains that we've got. This is actually, underneath it, there's some quite clever stuff about the nature of perception. How the hell can you make this kind of comedy out of that kind of material? And the answer seems to be, this kind of freewheeling imagination that's applied to both the visuals, but especially the verbals. And that makes me think of continuity as well as a break with the sort of stuff people were doing 80 years ago. We were talking a little bit about sketch comedy early before we started, and I'm thinking, well, 80 years is what, sort of vaudeville, isn't it? There's a kind of a link in both directions, perhaps. Maybe the earlier stuff was actually a hell of a lot more fun, like this is, and we can't see it because we haven't had such a helpful script.
Yeah, going back to that, the opening gambits between Auditus and Lingua, where Lingua's saying, you're gatekeepers to, and how people take in information and how people, refuse to listen to certain things and refuse to, and don't look at things and don't think about and don't put them into their worldview, and that we're all capable of those sort of biases. And that's sort of in here. Just a little soupçon of it, and it's not necessarily doing a lot with it, but it is playing with it in interesting ways, and there's all sorts of other things dancing in this. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Aliki, any final thoughts?
Not really very much to add. I am having a really good time so far. I enjoy the silliness. I wonder if Apetitus set us up for that battle scene by describing how much he'd rather hear herbs being chopped than cannon firing and that kind of thing. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what happens next.
Yeah. Okay. We're having fun. A few reservations, but hey, well, that's what the blue pencil was invented for. All that remains, therefore, until next time, is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Discharge artichoke pies.